and I project officer on the education team, like Kendra said. But who am I also outside of that? I'm also the sustainability engagement specialist with the International Schools Partnership. And that is quite the mouthful, of course. But what does that mean? It means that I basically help the schools in our network. We have over 80 schools all over the globe. And I go in and help to build a culture of sustainability on the campus and whatever that may mean in any capacity. Also working with the Global Schools program to help our advocates to learn how to deliver education for sustainable development in their context. And I'm also a founding member of the Sustainable Earth Dialogue Alliance, or SEDA, which is a group of youth sustainability professionals that are working all over the world to help bridge the barriers between the different sectors of business and education and really push forward on sustainable development goals. So today, what are you going to get out of this? Hopefully, you're going to get some strategies out of this that will help you to effectively engage your local stakeholders, help you to harness community expertise, secure funding, which is always a good thing for everybody, foster more collaborative initiatives, maybe within academic spheres or business spheres, anything that can promote sustainable practices in schools. And you will hopefully get some actionable methods to build those partnerships that are very meaningful, to implement those sustainable projects you've always wanted to implement, and create really long-lasting impacts in your school communities. So, community engagement. What is it and why is it important? Community engagement in sustainability helps to involve collaborative efforts between schools, local stakeholders, and promote all this environmental stewardship and sustainable practices in your community. It can help you to enhance your resource pool. So meeting people, networking, doing all of that stuff, you're learning who people are and where they connect. Even if you don't meet the one person you want to meet, you meet the person next to that person, and then eventually you're going to meet the person that helps you to get what it is that you need to get done in your school. It'll also help you to increase your impact and your outreach. So not only are you going to touch on your school community and really impact inside of that group, but also all the things that your students are involved in, the community as a whole. It's also going to help with support and advocacy. So when your students are creating an advocacy plan or they're coming up with some cool initiative, they can reach out into your network and engage with their community and get more support for their advocacy efforts. It also helps with education and awareness that you're going to have. So it enhances the sustainable literacy that you're going to be developing with your students by giving the students an actionable opportunity to practice those things in the real world while building awareness in their community themselves. And it helps to get a more long-term commitment going. A lot of times what happens is we have some kind of stakeholder or somebody in the school who's taking on all of these sustainability initiatives. And then when they leave the school because they retire or they get a different job, it just all collapses. But if you're really engaging with the community, you're going to have this more scaffolding around the programs that you're creating that help to keep it in place when you are gone. Okay, so sustainability in schools. This is a big one. Before we even get into how do you leverage these resources, we really got to talk about what it is that sustainability means in a school. Couple of benefits to sustainability practice in schools is you're going to have that obvious environmental impact, right? If you're keeping the lights off when they don't need to be on, the air con's off when it doesn't need to be on, then obviously your carbon footprint is going to go down. But it also helps to create these educational opportunities that aren't normally in the syllabus, right? So when you're in a math class and you turn the light off and one of the kids goes, "Teacher, why do I have to keep turning the light off? I don't like it." You say, well, let's calculate how much we save by turning the light off for this amount of time. You're getting a unique real world learning opportunity in there. It's going to have financial savings, which investors always love. And I'm going to get back to that later when we're talking about how to engage with the financial stakeholders. It's also going to build up your community reputation. I don't think I've seen a single instance of a school that has been promoting sustainability be looked at badly in the light of their community. But if somebody does have one, please let me know, and then I will remove that statement from this talk. But who knows? It also helps to promote health and well-being. Sustainability, as we all know, is not just about going green. It's also about society, good governance, all those different things that come with it. So we're talking about active mental health strategies, whatever it is that we might be doing in our communities to help build up that kind of sustainable emotional practice, sustainable community practice, whatever it may be. It's really good and healthy for our students. So why does community engagement matter? Resource access is the big one here, right? So maybe you're coming from a government school that doesn't have a lot of funding and you're like, I just don't have any money. I don't have any paper. I don't even have enough pencils for my classes. Like, how am I even going to get this stuff? I'll give you some examples of how community engagement really helped me in this regard when I was a teacher. Enhancing your impact, right? So you're not just teaching your students, you're also teaching your politicians. You're also teaching your board members. You're also teaching their parents. You're teaching everyone whenever you get the students involved in this. And it has a lot of in real life educational value, right? Those things I talked about before. And again, with long-term commitment. Okay, now let's get down to the things that not so great, right? What's in the way? What are our barriers to community engagement? Usually it's a lack of awareness. So it's really like understanding what community engagement is, like what is sustainability. Lots of people just don't know what it is, right? Limited resources of capacity, that's time mostly. You don't have the time for it. That's a huge barrier, as teachers very, very well know. Another one would be communication. This one, in my new role, that I was a teacher before, I'm having a very up close and personal experience of this. Corporate people do not speak the same way that teachers do. So how do you understand each other? That one's a big one for sure. Some people are skeptical. You know, you might have that guy in your community that's just not into sustainability. He doesn't believe that it's real, but he holds all the money. Then what do you do? So you got to work your way around that somehow. And also socioeconomic disparities, right? You know, you may be very successful in leveraging resources in your community, but your community may not have the socioeconomic privilege that the one next door has. So how do you go in between communities to find and leverage resources that may be adjacent to yours that don't fit in the same socioeconomic status? Okay, so a community resource, to define it clearly, refers to collective assets, expertise, and support available within your local neighborhood, organization, business, school, whatever it may be, in any way that can contribute to shared goals, such as sustainability in schools. So that could be money, that could be time, that could be knowledge, that could be baked goods, that could be seeds, it could be anything, really anything at all that you need. So some types of community resources, as we were talking about, you can really utilize expertise a lot. I mean, your parent community is a huge one to reach out to for sure. Funding, there is money hiding everywhere, especially if you're in a bigger city that has a lot of corporate businesses. This key 3 letters, CSR, corporate social responsibility. That is money waiting to drop into your lap. You would be so surprised. You can reach out to a company like, I don't know, Shell or Petronas. These oil and gas companies absolutely love giving money to schools because it makes them look so good. Just send an email to whoever it is that you can find on their website, and somebody will get back to you eventually. You may have to play a waiting game, but that's my biggest tip there. Right off the bat, if you're looking for a big chunk of money or some kind of donation, think about, where am I going to get these computers from? Contact Intel. They donate stuff all the time. It's like what they do. Partnerships are another big one, especially with local NGOs. So usually what happens with NGOs and within them, in my experience, having worked in one before and like having partnered with them on the teacher side, is that they're looking for opportunities to do these learning programs that they have developed, but they just don't have an audience for it because they're reaching out to individual families. But if you make a partnership with an NGO and you get the parents to donate funds for it, or you get some other company to donate funds to pay the NGO to come in, you're now giving yourself more time and more impact because somebody else is doing the delivery of material. And something that we always forget about, volunteers, or maybe we're using too much for bake sales instead of other things, right? So there are volunteers in your community that have expertise that can come in and help you build your garden. Maybe it's little old Linda that lives on the corner of the block and she loves gardening, but she doesn't have anything to do in the day and she would love to come into the school campus and help the kids garden. Okay, great examples. So we've got local businesses, they can do donations, they can do sponsorships, they can do employee volunteering. I'm not sure about every single country, but I know here in Malaysia, if you donate to a school monetarily for like, I don't know, a competition or you need to buy supplies or something, that donation is a tax write-off immediately. So you don't have to pay taxes as a small business on what you have donated. That's a huge incentive for somebody to donate to you. That's also a huge incentive for a sponsorship. Same thing, tax write-off, right? Employee volunteering. Major companies like Intel and Shell and Petronas and Dell, all these guys, they have a thing that is required of their employees to donate X amount of hours of their time to volunteering in some regard. Fun fact, right? I didn't know that either until I was having a beer with the guy that worked for Intel. And he was like, yeah, I got to go volunteer tomorrow. And I was like, excuse me? Wait a minute. You should come to our school and teach them about microchips, right? That was a really cool experience. Okay. Now, moving on to nonprofits, they have tons of educational programs, conservation projects, community outreach events. These are awesome opportunities to get your students to go to something that's usually free. It's off campus. You can turn it into a field trip if you partner with that local NGO in a way that would save your school money in the long run, right? So you don't have to pay admission fees because you're going to a park and you're having the NGO give them a wildlife tour or something. Another educational institution. That could be another local school in your area, or it could be a university or college. University and colleges absolutely love partnering with secondary and primary schools, especially if they have an education department, right? So their student teachers get to get real in-world experience teaching students through your campus. And that can be a research partnership where maybe your secondary students are going into the university and they're doing research underneath another student helping them. Or maybe you can get student internships where they're going like learning admin or IT or something like that inside of another school. Or it can be joint educational programs. One that I saw recently was some secondary students from around the world were invited to apply for a research like scholarship kind of mentoring process underneath a Harvard. And there was a bunch of chem lab students from Harvard that were judging these research proposals. And then whichever student group won that, they got to work and be mentored with those students from Harvard. And that was a really interesting program, but it was all free to the students, free to you as a teacher. Another one is government agencies. Now, this really, really, really depends on where you are in the world and what your government structure is like. If you know someone in government, it's almost always easier than not knowing someone in government. So make friends with everyone. Eventually, you're going to meet somebody that's in government. Getting those grants that come up every once in a while that are for tree planting projects or whatever it may be, that will be easier if you know somebody there. Getting permits approved will be easier if you know somebody there. Policy support as well. So say you want to write an eco policy for your school, but you don't know where to begin with it at all. You have no idea how to write policy. You can go to a government agency and ask them for some support with it. Usually there's somebody there who's really stoked to help you. Just ask. And here in Penang, we have the Penang Green Council. They come on and they teach about sustainable policy to our students, and they do it for free because that's what they do. That's their job. Okay. So the first thing you need to do is identify who your key stakeholders are, right? Usually it's going to be this list here if you are in a school. It could be different depending on what your project is. So mapping them out, that's a big one because who you're really talking to is the most important to identify where the bullseye is and then outward. What your focus is when you're writing a proposal, when you're leaving a voicemail, even whatever it is that you're going to do. Sorry. Okay, so identify the priorities, which means that you have to determine which stakeholders align with the sustainability goals that you have and the educational priorities that your institution has. So Parents and families may be your core audience, or maybe it's the students themselves. Usually it's going to be the students themselves or the parents and families, depending on what type of school you're working in. Those engagement strategies need to be tailored so that the engagement to each stakeholder group really captures their interests and their capabilities. The way that you're talking to local businesses is going to be more like, hey, I can get you a tax break. Whereas when you're talking to parents and families, you can be like, hey, your kid could work for Greenpeace or something. I don't know, like whatever it is that they're going to work for. They're going to work for the United Nations in the future. But if you're talking to a community organization, it'll be like, hey, you can get your word out there. If you're talking to a big corporation that's in charge of you, like your board, it's going to be like, look how much money I saved you. That's something that they always want to hear. Building those relationships with all of your key stakeholders and really understanding what their motivations are is super important. So if you're going to go talk to a government agency and you don't agree with their politics, don't tell them that. Just listen. Just listen to what they have to say. Listen to why they believe the way that they do. Maybe they don't. Maybe it's their job to believe that way. Who knows? Whatever it may be. But figure out what it is that will help them want to communicate and collaborate with you, and then mold your ideas to support that. That will get you a lot more attention and a lot more support from your community, no matter what you're doing. Okay, you get it. Now, how do you do it? How do you do this exactly? How do you leverage these resources? We'll go over that. Biggest one, collaborate. Big thing, right? So every time somebody says, do you want to do this? I will say maybe it's not the best for your mental health, but this is how I did it. I always said yes, every time, because somebody is always willing to help somebody who helped them before, more than somebody who always said no. In the beginning, when you're building this network, you're going to want to join in on joint projects that benefit both the school and the local community, so that when you do ask for more resources from them in the future, they're going to be a little bit more willing to say yes. The benefit of this, though, is that you're going to combine resources and manpower and expertise, so it's going to make a larger scale impact. And an example of this might be partnering with those local businesses or nonprofits and things like beach cleanup, right? We do that all the time. So you go to the beach and there's 100 kids there, but what if you partnered with a local NGO and there were 1,000 people there? It'd be way more impactful, and you could even get press involved, and then the press would come, and then after you get published in the newspaper, oh, this school, St. Mary's School or whatever, went to a beach cleanup and 1,000 people showed up. It was a huge event. Now you're going to have other businesses reaching out to you to support projects that you have in the future. So you become a point of contact. Next, you're going to share a lot. Don't keep it to yourself, right? So when you're collaborating with these people, you're going to be sharing spaces, equipment, infrastructure. You're going to be sharing your knowledge. You're going to be sharing whatever resources you have. If you're collaborating with a school or university, you're going to be sharing lesson plans. We do that all the time as teachers. This reduces costs. It optimizes your resource use, and it helps to expand your capability in order to implement these programs and practices. For a good example of this would be sharing the sports field, or maybe like you're going to develop a community garden on it. But I'll say the school that I worked at before this, we shared our sports field with the police department. Why does the police department have a football field? I don't know, but they do. So we shared it as a school. And there's a community garden actually in between, as the fence between the police department and the school. And we both take from it. You can use local libraries for these workshops if you don't have space inside of your own school. That's a government resource that you can pull from. You can also contact your local librarian to help find somebody who might be able to give a seminar as well, or maybe an author to come in. They're usually really well connected. I don't know why librarians are so well connected, but they are. I have a theory about that. Okay, donations and scholarships are a really big one as well. They're going to be able to secure these from, like I said, those big industry, small industry, whatever it may be, but it helps to supplement budgets, which is always a big deal. I know it's always a big deal when you're in a school, because the budget, there's nothing in the budget, right? You want to acquire these specialized resources for something, like maybe you want to start a hydroponics garden in your hallway. How? How are you going to do that if it wasn't written into the budget? Well, you can go out into your community and maybe a hardware store has the supplies that they're willing to donate. Or maybe there is a donation from Dell Corporation that they can make to write a tax break for themselves and give you the opportunity to go buy a pre-made hydroponic system. Or if you're like us here in Malaysia, we actually have a company that builds hydroponic equipment and they want to donate one so they can use it for their marketing. Win-win for everybody, right? All these sustainability initiatives kind of help to foster this community goodwill, and it brings a whole community together. Receiving solar panel donations is a huge one that happens a lot. So if you want to go solar on your campus, first of all, make sure that you can, because it can be kind of dangerous if you don't know where to put it. But second, just reach out to a local solar panel company. They're probably willing to donate some to you. Okay. Volunteering and mentorship is another big one. Parents are a huge resource that don't get used nearly enough, because I think teachers don't like talking to parents very often. And I get that. I was a teacher. I don't want to do it. I get it. We come to that time of the year and you're like, I don't want to talk about little Billy again. Like, let's not do this anymore. But if you go and you reach out into the parent community, you can really enhance those educational experiences. Have an assembly about how Billy's dad is the guy who goes out and fixes, the wind turbines or whatever it is that they do in your community. You can really get the community involved. The parents will get really excited that they're being brought in not to get yelled at about Billy again, but just to talk about something that they're really good at, right? So these long-term support that we're talking about before, I mean, the parents are going to be there the whole time the kid is in school. That's a long time, depending on what school you're working at. But you're going to get the parents' support behind it, and that will really push forward and continue those sustainability initiatives. A really good example of this would be like a mentorship program where you kind of link secondary students to the local professionals guide that is your parents' list in green technology projects, maybe, or sustainability career pathways when we're specifically talking about ESD. Okay, establishing successful partnerships. Here's how we do it. 1, identify all of your potential partners. Now, this is going to be the most painstaking part of the process, because you have to figure out where these people are. How are you going to contact them? What are they doing? Like, how long have they been established? Are they even interested in talking to you? Yeah, it's going to take a while, but you have a whole summer. So just go out, mingle, go hang out with people, identify who could be useful when you're talking to anybody about what it is that you do for work. And that could be in any sector. Then the initial outreach comes. So write yourself a really, really good first contact email. If you don't feel like doing it, have ChatGPT do it, because ChatGPT is really good at doing that kind of stuff, by the way. It's really good corporate. Then you're going to kind of talk to them when they get back to you, feel it out, see what it is. If you need help, ChatGPT can really help you, because it's really good at helping with those situations that are first contact. And then kind of present your idea to those people, those entities, whatever it is. And then when they say yes, formalize it. Get it in writing that they're going to do it. Otherwise, you're going to go back to your school admin, or you're going to go back to your school leadership and say, I got this guy to agree to do this. And then when it comes time to do it, he's going to be like, no, I didn't. Then you're kind of a sitting duck, because you made plans for it, right? And you don't want that. So make sure you have it written down, because then they have to. ChatGPT can write an MOU, no problem. Then in the future, after you've already created the detailed plan for your project, that includes timelines, resource allocations, key performance indicators, all those things you want to keep track of, because when you go back to someone to ask in the future, you can be like, look, I did sustainability project X. I did it in 6 months. It cost this amount of money. We got the resources from here. This is what we used. This is what the outcome was. And look how much money it saved our board. That is a key one to hold on to. Really measure what the difference is when you're doing something, because that can be really helpful in getting more support from people in the future. Okay, it's really important to keep trust and collaboration open all the time, because if you ruin one relationship, it can really, really ruin it forever. Just always assume that somebody wants to work with you. Never be like, I'm so sorry. Never say that. Already come at it from this open communication, this open dialogue perspective. Like, why wouldn't you want to work with me? It's for children. Do you hate children? No. So work with me, right? keep this open communication, be very direct. Don't ever keep anything hidden from them, except for the students' identities. We don't ever want to put that out there. Don't breach safeguarding. That's bad. Make sure you have regular meetings set up. So every time you say goodbye, make sure there's another time you're going to say hello, just to keep everything going. Make sure that you are very respectful, even if it gets a bit difficult. I know how difficult it can be when you're talking to an oil and gas company and you're like, I don't like what you do for work, but try really hard to keep it respectful, and be flexible and adaptable, right? So these corporate guys or the government, they're going to have deadlines, or maybe they don't, and that's the problem, is that they can just keep dragging it out forever. Try to be flexible, try to be adaptable, but do keep a spine. Keep making sure that they understand that you also have your own deadlines. You can pull the teacher card at any point, be like, teachers have it hard, everybody knows that, so you got to work with me. That works. Okay, making sure your goals and objectives are aligned. Making sure you have a shared vision. Making sure that all the partners that are involved see the long-term impact of the initiatives up front is very important. So that initial email that you send when you're connecting is going to put this shared vision in there. Common objectives, collaborative goal setting, all this stuff is going to be in that initial email. How are you going to measure the progress of what you're doing? You can take a look at this slide later. I'll send the slide link to Kendra here, and maybe it can go out in the next newsletter, something like that. You can take a look at this yourself, because I don't want to take your whole night up with it. Okay, here's some examples. This is the fun part, right? We've got the Edible Schoolyard Project in Berkeley, California. I don't know if anybody's heard of this, but wow, this is such a cool initiative. And this is what got me into environmental education to begin with. This community basically reached out from a school area, and like they got all these partners together to build this giant garden with this awesome kitchen classroom thing going on. It's insane, right? All these students learned to grow and harvest and prepare their fresh food. All the people that came in and taught them were from the local community. They got to integrate this environmental education into their daily curriculum. It was so successful. It's still running to this day. I get daily updates from Alice Waters, the founder of it, but it's like, it's absolutely insane. The whole community came together to teach kids how to plant a garden, take care of it, harvest it, cook the food from it in a way that was healthy. Now, this came out of a need for fresh food in an area that was of low socioeconomic status, that was considered a food desert. And a food desert meaning that like there was no way for people to get fresh, healthy food in the area that they were living because they were so far away from a supermarket, or it was just too unaffordable. So they solved it by going out and requesting donations of seedlings and stuff in their community. Now, a couple of years ago, I did something similar here in Malaysia where we had zero budget to start a sustainability initiative, but I started an eco club and the kids wanted to build their own garden. We didn't have any space and we didn't have any seeds. So I put a Facebook post up in a local gardeners group for Penang asking for seedlings. And I got so many seedlings, I had to make 4 trips in my tiny car to the campus because they wouldn't fit in my car. And we had a plot of land that was like the size of a parking space. And I don't know if you know this, but Malaysia is a place where everything grows really fast. That turned into a jungle in like 3 weeks. It was insane. The kids loved it. There was fruit everywhere. There was flowers everywhere. There was beans. We were like learning what all these new things were. A bunch of bugs came on. It was a great learning opportunity for every single class, right down to the ESL class, right? It was awesome. I highly recommend doing this if you have the opportunity. Green School is like a really good example of how getting a lot of money can make a really big difference, right? So this is in Bali in Indonesia. The whole school is like an architectural masterpiece. It's built with all natural materials. The students work in the open outdoors. It's got a renewable energy system, its own organic gardens. They learn everything about sustainability and conservation. They are open to everywhere. And they are constantly taking in new partnerships. They're really focusing on indigenous knowledge, which is something that I highly recommend you do in your region. So it's a very holistic approach to sustainability and to education as a whole. Roots and Shoots is another one going on in China. I'm sure that this one is global, but this is a humanitarian youth program that's founded by the Jane Goodall Institute. very active chapters in China, but they participate in projects that are like recycling drives, community cleanups, and wildlife conservation awareness, but they really focus on reaching out into the community as a whole. So they invite people to come to their community cleanups and like go through the different neighborhoods together. The students learn from the people, the elder people in the community, like all this new traditional knowledge and stuff like that. The recycling drives are basically, they're making their school a pickup point. So all of the community members can go and drop like e-waste at the school, and then it goes and gets properly recycled. Or the wildlife conservation awareness stuff happens within the community, not just the school, and they'll bring in local NGOs that teach the kids about pandas and stuff like that, whatever it might be. So they're really taking the resource of expertise from their local community. Okay, so actionable steps, where to begin, where to end. We talked about this before a little bit. We're going to start with identifying objectives, you're going to do your stakeholder analysis, develop a plan. You're going to build those partnerships by writing that initial email, and then you're going to do the communication, and you're going to communicate and promote what it is that you're doing in various channels, right? Using Facebook, using Instagram, using LinkedIn, these are really great ways for you to get your initiative out there and make it so that when you contact people, they've already heard of it before. I would really highly recommend learning how to use hashtags appropriately because it can help you a lot. SMART goals. If you know these, you know these. If you don't, I highly recommend it. This is a very distinctive way on how to do it. And I could do a whole nother session on just how to do SMART goals properly, which I did with Rachel actually last time that I did talk. But this will be a really good way to make sure that what you are planning to do with your students, what your sustainability initiative is actually actionable within the 6-month time frame that usually you get in a school year, right? So you're going to get 2 months leading up to like what your project is, then you're going to have 6 months to actually enact it, and it's going to be like a 1-month wrap up, or planning for all the things that get in the way of your project in the middle. Make sure that you really take the time to develop a good goal for what it is that you want to do. Okay, monitoring and evaluation, I touched on this a bit. Here are some different ways that you can do it, but I highly recommend making sure that whenever you do a project with your students, you're really documenting it, not just for their grade, but for the success of what you have done with the resources you have been given, so that you can prove to someone in the future, if they're like, oh, how do I know you're not going to mess it up? You can be like, actually, here's 17 projects that I've done with my students so far that have been completely successful, and here's why. So all of those things that we do when we're teachers as evaluation, they're there. But also I would add in audits, right? Energy and waste audits, especially in the realm of sustainability, are really, really helpful at showing the impact of sustainability initiatives on a campus. So teach your students how to read a meter, like an energy meter, or maybe just kind of do an audit on how much recycling actually goes into the recycling bins, or how much food waste goes into the recycling bins instead of recycling. That's a good one. And feedback sessions is really good to do. So if you can record them, audio recording is usually the best way to do it, but that is helpful for giving a more vibrant understanding of what has been happening to your project. Okay, why do we do that? Not only are we going to get better, but we're also going to identify what the challenges are that we keep facing. You're going to be able to measure the impact, obviously, and the accountability. So if you don't finish this project, what's going to happen? Nothing really, but you're probably not going to get people to help you in the future. So you have to show that you're continually improving, and keeping a little docket of that is the best way to do it. Okay, so resources and support. Here are a couple places that you can start. Resources available for community school partnerships. There's a lot of guides and toolkits. Global Schools has one, just saying. It's there. There's a lot of educational materials from the Global Schools as well. We also offer technical support if you become a part of our advocacy group. So there's that. Funding and opportunities for grants is all over the place. Crowdfunding is one of them, but so are nonprofit organizations, corporate sponsorships. We also have support networks and organizations available to us. Just go type in environmental education into Facebook and watch how many thousands of different groups come up. Same thing for LinkedIn. It's all over the place. You have local environmental groups, parent-teacher associations. There's so much support out there to get it done. Maybe we'll be putting out a resource guide soon to help with that. We'll see about it. But yeah, and you can always contact me if you need any help, but I will take any questions now, I guess. That's the next part.
Thank you so much, Alexa. Thank you for an amazing session. And yes, definitely we can take questions. So if anyone has a question, you can put it in the chat, or if you want to come off mute, you can. You can come off mute and ask your question. We have some minutes, so we can definitely take questions. I think that what you have shared, Alexa, it's something that is highly beneficial to teachers. And a lot of times these things are within our vicinity, within our context. But sometimes if we are not conscious of some of these existing resources, then it can become a challenge to leverage them. So if anyone has any question, you can ask in the chat. Okay, so we have a hand up. Okay. Yes, Beljean, if that's correct, please go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, everyone. First of all, I want to thank to Alexa. It was very fruitful presentation. And is there any platform that teachers share their projects and ask for collaboration? Any WhatsApp group or any, I don't know.
Yes, definitely. I will say I'm probably a member of a couple hundred of them at this point. But honestly, you're gonna, if like, what country are you based in?
Turkey. I'm from Turkey, Istanbul.
Okay, I would recommend going onto Facebook first. That seems to be a popular one in Turkey. And then from there, it will kind of lead you into WhatsApp groups that come out of the groups that are on Facebook. But that's usually a good place to start. You can also try on LinkedIn, or you can reach out to a local environmental NGO in your region. That usually is the best place to start when you're looking for a network of people to get into the thing with. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Belgen, I know that you're also one of our Global Schools alumni. I'm not sure if you are, we have a WhatsApp group for all of our alumni as well. Sarah, maybe you can private message her with the WhatsApp group because that's very active as well.
I'm in the group.
Oh, okay.
But there's no message. None of the teachers just share their projects and ask for collaboration. But if it is okay, maybe from now on, they may just write their projects and then we can cooperate with the other countries' students.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know that there's a program called the United Schools, and it's like a Facebook for educators specifically focused on sustainability. So that might be one that would be good for you because the whole thing is just a Facebook of teachers sharing what projects they've done in their schools. I'll go find the link and pop it in the chat.
Yeah, please.
Okay, so before we take Ahmad's question, there's a question from Mira. This was sent via the chat.
No, sorry to interrupt. I found it. I Googled it and found the curriculum. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome, Mira. Okay, so please go ahead, Ahmad.
Thank you so much, Nene. So this is Hamad, and I'm from Pakistan. It's a country that is like massively impacted by the climate change. So I have been, it's kind of a reflective question. I want your thoughts on this, that I have working with the young graduates and there are small initiatives done in terms of the environmental changes. It could be like tree initiative, it could be like moving towards paper-based packaging and certain other initiative as well. But what happens eventually is that since young graduates has certain life to go towards in terms of their own and employments and things like that in the multiple trajectories, so project does get started, but the impact of them or the scale of them become kind of stagnant or mitigated with time. So what could be the most optimal way to actually enhance or exponentially expand the impact that has been created instead of it being diminishing? Any thoughts on that?
Yes, I've experienced this before, and it is frustrating when you put so much effort into a project and then the students themselves get disengaged from it. I have found that getting a younger school group to embed the project within them kind of keeps them excited, and then also embedding it into a student governance structure on the older end, then having the 3 different groups come together, they kind of wax and wane together and they keep each other motivated in different ways. But another way to do it is to give them like a completion award of some sort. So if you cannot finish this project, you cannot have this awesome pizza party or something, whatever it may be that motivates them. So you're going to have to figure out what it is that they want. And maybe at the beginning of the project, you ask them, what is it that you want at the end of this? And they're going to be like, oh, you know, I want to recycle. And be like, no. What do you want specifically? If you finish this, what is your reward? And then they'll be like, working towards that. When they get unmotivated with their actual project, they'll be working towards this more hedonistic reward that they have, kind of remotivating them. That is the only way that I've found to be successful with teenagers, at least. But if anybody has any ideas, I'd love to hear it.
Okay. All right. I think we might be able to still take some additional questions if anybody still wants to ask. You can go ahead to ask now.
Can I go?
Yes, please.
Oh, sorry, I went back on mute. Thank you, Alexa. It was really interesting and insightful session. I'm Meera. I'm from India. So I work in an NGO that partners with government schools to create a sustainability community in the school community. And I'm wondering if there are any organizations that I could partner with, which could work with teacher development and teachers' professional development, and especially particularly when it comes to impact analysis and data collection and data analysis. These are some areas teachers are not really trained in particular to projects. More likely, we understand data collection in sense of academic progress of their classrooms, but how do we support them to do data analysis when it comes to projects and track the progress, as you mentioned in the last couple of slides?
Well, yeah, I totally understand that. The Global Schools program does that kind of inadvertently, where we teach teachers to kind of track what it is they're doing monthly. I would say that also the International Schools Partnership does that by our structure, but you know, that's me being biased, of course. But there's definitely a lot of different organizations out there that kind of help teachers to upskill in this regard. Just off the top of my head, I would say that Compass, Compass Solutions, I think that's the full name. They definitely do teach teachers to, not for the purpose of evaluation, but for the purpose of reflection, to gather data. And that one can be translated over. That's interesting. I'm not sure if I know one that specifically does like how to do metrics and evaluation, but I'm sure it does exist out there. Maybe you could even go to a company that has to do this often. Let's see, like a reporting firm, maybe there is a sustainability consultant somewhere in your area that could come in to teach the teachers what it is that they need to be measuring and how to measure it, because that's basically what they do. They go on to big campuses for either companies or schools, and they just kind of do an analysis of the whole sustainability of the building, and that's ESG. So you could reach out to one of those groups, or maybe even like a bigger corporation, and see if they have an ESG department, environmental social governance, and they will usually be very helpful in teaching teachers how to monitor this sort of thing. I don't know if that helps to answer your question, but it is really context dependent, location dependent, where you are and what resources you have available to you.
I will just add, I think that's a wonderful question. I just searched data analysis and meal courses for teachers online, and quite a few came up. So that's always an option. There's so many different resources out there. So maybe an online course or something would be something that you would be interested in, Meera.
Okay. Also, Sarah has been sharing some helpful links in the chat, so you can also check out some of those links. That might also be helpful for you. Okay. Do we have any other question?
Yes, Alexa, just one question I have. If you could kind of summarize and give one kind of main piece of advice for the teachers as they're trying to leverage community resources, what is the main kind of takeaway or advice that you would recommend?
Yes. You need to become famous in your community, if that makes sense. The more people that know about you, the more likely it is that you will get a positive response. Because when you come up to someone and say, hey, do you think you could donate this to our school? They'll be like, hey, I've heard about you. You'd be like, oh, yeah, because I'm famous, you should totally give me free stuff. Like that usually works. Building your network, saying yes to meeting new people, that's a big one. Get really good at conversation. Teachers are usually already very good at that, so we don't have to worry about it. But just meeting new people, mingling, getting to know the different sectors. Don't always hang out with your teacher friends. Maybe go hang out with some of the other industry professionals that are in your area. Getting to know more people is really the biggest point of success that I've had, because I was able to bring in so many different people that were my friends onto our campus, but they worked as really huge resources. Like I got to know so many different people from hanging around in different parts of Penang, where I live. And I mean, I met people in tech, I met people in oil and gas, I met people in government, I met people all over the place, and all of them have come and brought something to our school in some way. So I've just kind of made myself a point of contact and a fishing hook, basically, to capture new resources for our schools. So I would say that's the biggest piece of advice.
All right, thank you so much, Alexa. Okay, so before we close out, we would like to take a group photograph. So I would be requesting in a minute or two for us to put on our videos if that's comfortable for us. In the meantime, a huge thank you to you, Alexa. Thank you so much for having this very important conversation with us, how we can effectively leverage community resources for sustainable engagement. I think also that it's something that the way you went about it, you actually went about by highlighting the different, groups of resources, let me put it that way, because in some cases, sometimes we might just focus our attention on, oh, we need, the big corporates to come in and donate things, but what are the other resource banks around us, as educators that we can also leverage? So I think from what you have shared, a combination of all of these different resource banks is what can really help teachers, educators in their work. So thank you so much for this session. Yes. So at this point, if you are comfortable, we would like to request that you turn on your video. We would like to take a group picture. So just thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. I see some people turning on their video already. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, so I would give 10 seconds more for those who would still like to turn on their videos, and then we can take a screenshot. Kendra, you would be able to help with great. So 10 seconds more, 5 seconds now.
I think we're good to go, Nini.
Yes, let's go.
Are you able to take it, or would you like me to?
Yeah, you can go ahead, Kendra.
Okay, 1 second. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Wonderful. Okay, perfect. I'll do one more. Perfect. Thank you so much, everybody.
Yes, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for joining in.
Have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Yes. Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye,
Keep doing
everyone.
amazing work. Bye, everyone.
Nene, because I made you the host, you're gonna have to stop the recording and stop the meeting.
All right. So let's start.